No, we're changing the podium because we won't have all the mics on it. So they bring in a bigger podium. Which media house are you from? Okay, okay. Give me, did you write your number on the sign-in sheet? Okay, all right. Then I'll get it from there.
Yeah, that one, the box, that box, yeah. Yeah, that one. What's inside? And a book for.
Yo, Musa. Abiel. Abiel wa? Abiel.
Yes, yes, yes. We'll bring in money.
Mic test. Mic test. Mic test.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Speaker. Um, I think I'll be the shortest. Living the person there, places would be touched.
You ready? So everybody's good? Can I get an okay? Okay. morning, the media, our partners here present this morning. Good morning, members of my executive of the Citizens Alliance under the leadership of Dr. Ismaila Cisse. Before we get into today's event, can we please invoke the presence of God in our midst? So can I ask that we all pray for a few seconds in our different individual ways, please? May God answer all our prayers, protect us, guide us so that we achieve whatever has brought us together this morning. Amen. Members of the media, everybody watching us, first of all, I just want to apologize strongly for the late start. We had setbacks this morning. That is why we're not able to start on time, 10 o'clock, as we communicated. But in Citizens Alliance, we have guiding principles. When setbacks happen, we ask ourselves, do we allow the setbacks to discourage us, or do we allow it to bring us determination? And we choose to allow setbacks and challenges to bring us determination. So I will say we are starting off this morning's activities with a lot of determination. We are fired up and ready to go and tackle issues as it deems fit. So thank you very much for coming. We are appreciative of your partnership with us, always engaging with us when we call you. Thank you very much. And then again, sorry for the late start. This morning here we called you. We sent out a communique and say, please come, let's engage again. This was our promise at Congress that we will be engaging with the media and the citizenry on a monthly basis to discuss issues that are pertinent to our country, issues that affect the lives and livelihoods of Gambians. And I think thus far, we have kept to our promise. We're in July, and here we are doing the 7th monthly press conference. So I say kudos to ourselves. Touch wood. I hope nothing happens down the line, that we'll be able to keep up to this and do it on a monthly basis. And I want to also thank you for always coming to engage with us when we call. And in our communique, we say we call you to unveil a very, very important document. We call it 10-point promise. And can you highlight the word promise here? 10-point promise. If I take your minds back, sometime last year in December, if I stand to be corrected, we called you, I think it was in this same room, where we launched another document, which was our party manifesto. And that document, we called it Our Contract with the People. And just to remind you, this is the manifesto that we launched here, which we went around the whole country, engaged with people from different walks of life to get their take, to have their take in this document, because it's the document for the people, a contract with the people. Again, we embark on another daunting task, a very, very difficult task, to talk to people, experts from different walks of life, to come up with a 10-point promise. And our engagement was to know what affects the lives and livelihoods of Gambians. What do they expect of their leader? And how will they hold their leaders accountable? We sum this up and put it on a 10-point, and we call it our 10-point promise. Today, under the leadership of Dr. Cisse, he's going to unveil this document and take you through what Citizens Alliance will do once we take the State House December 5th, 2021. And when we unveil it to you, please take note and hold us accountable as we go through our first 5 years in government. Without much ado, I want to invite Dr. Ismaila Cisse to start that crusade with you right now. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Nene Frida Gomez, for that brilliant introduction. Good morning, members of the press, and also members of the public here today to witness this very important day, not only in the journey of Citizens Alliance, but also in the journey of the Republic of the Gambia. Members of the press, those present here today, and those who could not make it unavoidably, I take this opportunity to thank you for your partnership. I remember since we launched this great party, we had made an internal pact within the party that we will have the media as one of our greatest partners during our journey. And I think this partnership is working fine, and so far we are happy. And we thank you as well for the wonderful work you are doing in disseminating critical information to the public, despite obviously the very many challenges. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the executive of the Citizens Alliance present here today. Obviously, I need not introduce Nene Frida Gomez, the darling of the press. She is indefatigable spokeswoman. She had once mentioned sternly, in fact warning us, that we should refrain from calling her the spokesperson and that we should call her the spokeswoman. Rafi Diab, obviously, everybody knows him, I think, by now. He is national mobilizer. He's also here today on the low table. And of course, our very own Mr. Dominic Mendy, the national president of the party, the most youthful member of our executive, obviously. After Dominic, chairman, we have our KMC regional chairman, Mr. Ngari Cham, sitting there. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Basiru Manka. He is the regional chair for Lower River region. Before I start this very important press conference where we will unveil this 10-point agenda to the Gambian people, what we are saying is very simple. That Gambia elect us on December 4th. And when you do, we are going to do, in addition obviously to what is in our manifesto, which is more of a long-term blueprint, we are going to ensure we fulfill a promise that we call a contract with the Gambian people. There are 10 things that we promise that we will do in our first 5 years in office. And if we don't, you can hold us accountable. Gone are the days when politicians cannot be held accountable for their words. We live in a digital world now. Whatever you say, whatever you do is stored and archived. You'll forget about it, but people will not forget. And in fact, if you're an ardent Facebook user, sometimes something will just pop up to remind you of a post you made 5 years ago. So we are making this bold, ambitious promise to the Gambian people. And very soon I will unveil it after going through some brief protocol. Number one, we all know that there is an increase, a surge in the infection of the Delta variant of the coronavirus. The Delta variant is more infectious, more lethal. And unlike the Beta variant, it is very cruel to young people. If you remember the Beta variant and the previous variants, were mostly killing those who are clinically vulnerable and also mostly elderly people. But this Delta variant is really, really a serious one. And the only thing that can protect you and your family and your friends and your neighbors from the Delta variant and its cruelty is by getting vaccinated. Through the COVAX framework, Gambia had received at first 30,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which I think were all administered. Last week, we received 150,000 doses from the American government. I take this opportunity to thank our American partners under the leadership of Joe Biden for giving us those 150,000 doses. So now the Ministry of Health are going around rolling out these vaccines to Gambians. I urge every Gambian who has the opportunity to take the vaccine, especially you members of the press. Your work is critical. You go everywhere. You talk to everyone. You are one of the frontline workers, in fact. When we say frontline, I think it should be priority. Even though there is no, I haven't seen any strategy, it might exist in terms of how it will be rolled out, but I think the press, the media, should be given priority to take the vaccine. And I think every person who is a journalist should endeavor to take the vaccine as soon as possible, because you go everywhere, you deal with everyone, you interact with society on a daily basis. So it is very critical that you take this vaccine, but also every Gambian to do so if you have the opportunity. Secondly, I'd like to wish our Olympic team, the Gambians who are flying the Gambian flag high in Tokyo, wish them best wishes and good luck, that we are proud of them. They are going to represent the Gambian flag in Tokyo. And we hope and pray that for the first time in our history, they will bring us at least a few gold medals, at least a medal, even if it's bronze or silver. But we hope, and we are very hopeful. It's a great talent. And I hope they will inspire other young people to engage in sports, but also inspire government to invest more money in sports so that Gambia can have glory in international theaters like the World Cup, the African Nations Cup, but also, in fact, the Olympics as it is going on. Another thing is the transitional justice. We all know that, obviously, the TRRC is done with its work insofar as testimony is concerned, and the Commission is working on submitting its report and final recommendations. We urge the Commission to do a fine work and not to rush the report. The entire transitional justice framework of the Gambia now depends solely on the TRRC. No need to rush. Take your time, write a comprehensive report, come up with an unbiased recommendations that will foster reconciliation. That is why we call it transitional justice. There can be no transition in the Gambia from autocracy to democracy if there is no justice. So therefore, the report, the recommendations must ensure that justice is served, victims get the right reparations, it promotes reconciliation, but already we know the truth. But wishing them good luck on that. And we urge the government as well to make sure that the recommendations are fully implemented. And we at CA, we are making that pledge that we will do our utmost best to ensure that the recommendations are implemented. Before I start the unveiling of the 10-point agenda or promise, I'd like to introduce this young man, Bakari Sane, who is here with us today. He is the one helping us to make this broadcast accessible to those who are difficulties in hearing. So thank you very much for your presence. We appreciate you very much. I think, in fact, it should become law in this country as part of an equality legislation to ensure that every public event should get someone like Bakari Sane to ensure that those who are impaired, those who are audio impaired, those who can't hear properly, are not discriminated against. This is something that we should consider. Now, the most important thing that which brings us here today. Are you ready, members of the press and members of the public? So we call it Citizens Alliance 10-point promise or agenda, or you can call it 10-4-5 or T4F. People who are as lazy, people like myself who are lazy, I don't want to call it 10-point plan, 10-point promise. I'll just call it T4-5. That's easy, huh? That is the promise. Number one, the Citizens Alliance government promises to diversify our economy, to drive growth and job creation. Not only that, we promise to reform the civil service and state-owned enterprises and to eradicate corruption. These are bold and ambitious promises. We are not saying we are going to reduce corruption or fight it, we are going to eradicate it, and we are very serious about it. So we have to diversify our economy. Not only that, but why do we have to diversify the economy? To drive growth. When there is no growth, there are no jobs. The economy is stagnant. Drive growth, create jobs, reform the civil service to make it lean and efficient and effective. To use innovative solutions in service delivery in the Gambia. And also our state-owned enterprises, which are supposed to do two things, and they are failing in those respects. They are supposed to provide service, but also bring dividend to government, and most are failing in that respect. We are going to reform them. Serious structural reforms, not lip service reform, serious structural reforms. But also we are going to eradicate corruption. We all know now that the civil service is not motivated, especially civil servants. There is high level of demotivation, there are no incentives, salary is low, professional ethics is a problem. There is no transparency in how public funds are managed currently in the country. And there is serious misuse of corporate assets. We are going to stop all that. We are going to eradicate corruption. We are in fact going to reduce the number of ministries, not reduce number of ministries, but also in fact remove some ministries and bring in new ministries. The ministries we have now, the 18, 19 ministries we have now, we are created since independence, some in the 80s, to solve and deal with challenges of the 70s and 80s and 90s. We are in 2021 heading towards 2050. We need new institutions that can not only deal with today's challenges, but also anticipate future challenges and start dealing with them now. Therefore, we need new, innovative ministries. So we are going to reform, that will be part of our civil service reform. We are going to obviously reevaluate the payroll to make sure people are paid the value of their labor so that every Gambian is paid a living wage. We set targets and do performance evaluation. Recruitment will be based only on merit. We will eradicate to zero nepotism. And we'll establish a charter of ethics that every civil servant will work by. And we'll reform the SOEs. SOEs are critical to our development. What do we do with Ports Authority? Must be reformed, structural reforms. Gambia is strategically placed to harness the power of our maritime and our aviation. The power and the potential of our maritime industry and our aviation has not been really utilized properly so far since independence. Gambia should have been a hub, aviation hub, not only for West Africa, but also that entire West African region, even and beyond, even Asia, if you look at the strategic location that we have, even our maritime. We should be serving Asia, Europe, southern part of Africa with goods coming from our ports, making Banjul a truly port city. I know some Banjulians would not like this, but I would like to see in the future our capital move to Soma and Farafenye, having what we call a twin city, linked by the bridge. And Banjul becomes a truly port city, truly maritime city. We are going to restructure NAWEC. NAWEC will be, I see a government will do exactly what? Because NAWEC has three components. Management. We will change management. We are going to make sure that NAWEC is managed by competent professional private firms to make it more effective. Power generation will change as well. We are moving away progressively from heavy fuel and generators to more green energy. We are going to engage the private sector and have independent power producers to work with to make sure we have NAWEC is efficient. Not only that, provide services, cheap services, but also bring dividend. Ports, GIA, GAMTEL, GAMCEL will structurally reform all these state-owned enterprises to make sure they provide service, but also bring dividend to government. When it comes to the economy, how do we diversify it? Today, Gambia's debt stock is 78% of GDP. That is the debt ratio to GDP. That's too high. We'll renegotiate our debt to reduce the current government debt. We'll also make sure there's efficient spending in government, but also we reform our taxation regime. Currently, we think that many people are not paying their fair share of society. And also ensure that we reduce the informal sector so that we can really receive more tax that will be invested in people. We'll invest for growth in critical industries, like I said, maritime and aviation, and make Gambia competitive for foreign direct investment, and ensure we have the right conditions, a knowledge economy by building capacity of young people, by building human capital, having the right legal frameworks, having the right infrastructure, both energy infrastructure and road infrastructure, to attract global capital, to bring multinational corporations to Gambia, to provide jobs for our young people, not only any job, but also decent jobs, working within the framework of our robust laws, labor laws, and environmental laws. We'll expand the tax base, tighten controls in terms of government spending, and inject professional and competent management in government and SOEs. So that is number one. Promise two, we are making a commitment to create 100,000 jobs in the Gambia in our first 5 years. Not only that, we are making a commitment to progressively impose minimum wage in this country. Not only that, we are going to establish a scheme to expand women's access to finance. That is also a commitment we are making to the Gambian people. Women should get access to finance, to engage in entrepreneurship, to get access to land, to get access to assets. That is the only way you can empower women in this country. Young people must get jobs. We'll provide skills, not any job, but jobs that pay and that can ensure our young people live a decent life. So that if you want to be a carpenter, you are a successful carpenter, you can buy your own house as a carpenter, get your own car, and take care of your family and yourself. So that if you want to be a journalist in the Gambia, you can be a successful journalist, buy your own house through journalism, and have your own car, and go on vacation once a year, and go out to restaurants to eat twice a week. So that if you want to be a footballer, you can be a footballer in the Gambia, you are a successful footballer in the Gambia, a professional one for that matter. You can buy your own house as a footballer in the Gambia, your own car, and you live a decent life as a footballer in the Gambia. So we are going to provide 100,000 jobs across all sectors, from the construction, to to sports, to music, to arts, to the environment, you name it. 100,000 jobs we are promising. December 2026, if we don't provide 100,000 jobs for Gambians, don't vote us in again. Sack us from the job. Promise 3, facilitate expansion of infrastructure and technology upgrades to provide reliable, clean and affordable energy and provide access to safe drinking water to every household. Like I said, one of the ways in which we can achieve this is to do a fundamental restructuring of NAWEC to ensure that, like I said, all these 4 components, management is taken care of. Power generation, we bring technology and innovative solutions for power generation. Not only that, distribution, transmission and distribution infrastructure and networks will be rehabilitated, will do investments in the distribution networks and transmission networks, but also in terms of the commercials. All those 4 components, management, generation, T&D, which is transmission and distribution, and commercials, which is supply. But also provide access to clean drinking water. We think it is unfair for some people to have swimming pools in their homes, while our people in rural Gambia struggle to get a liter of water. There should be equitable distribution of water across the country. Every Gambian must get access to clean drinking water in your compound and not go out to fetch water in the well or in public taps. We are making that commitment to the Gambian people. Promise 4, improve access, equity, and quality of our healthcare system and establish a national healthcare scheme. So we are not only committing to improve access by making sure we train more healthcare staff, the right training, by investing in primary healthcare to ensure that we have a scheme called Healthcare Where You Are. You don't have to move from Sibeto in Kabada to Quinella for you to deliver as a woman, as it is happening now. If a woman wants to deliver in Sibeto, in Kabada, they'll have to put her on the back of a donkey cart to trek the 12-kilometer trip to Quinella Health Center. During the rainy season, when the roads are bad, sometimes the woman will give birth at the back of the donkey cart. That will stop in this country with a CA government. We are going to make sure there is healthcare facilities, not only healthcare, but well-equipped with well-trained staff and well-trained equipment to make sure healthcare is accessible to every Gambian, no matter your gender, no matter your age, no matter which ethnicity you come from, or no matter which region you come from, or no matter from which parents you are born. Not only that, equity in healthcare, but also quality healthcare, and also establish a national healthcare scheme, or what we would call a national healthcare strategy. The British had the foresight 75 years ago to establish the NHS, and today it is one of the most successful healthcare strategies the world has seen. It should be bold enough and ambitious enough to also establish a new national healthcare strategy that the world will come and use as a model in other countries. Promise number 5, reform our education system to support and foster learning that ensures inclusivity and equitable quality education that taps into the creative potential of all Gambians. We have to reform the education sector. For now, it is not fit for purpose. If your education sector cannot solve your most basic problems, if you cannot help us repair our potholes in the streets and build our small corner roads, and help us stop these house fires and these unnecessary accidents, then that education sector has failed. It's supposed to help solve problems. If it cannot help us build the society we want in 25 years' time, then it has failed. We have to reform the health sector to do two dual purposes. One, to help us solve today's complex problems, but also help us build the modern Gambia we want in 25, 30 years' time. So we are going to reform the education system. Currently, it is a colonial cobweb to support and foster learning. Not only learning, but learning that ensures inclusivity, no matter your disability. It's unfair for children with disabilities, visually impaired, those who are deaf, physically impaired, are not treated equally. They are discriminated in our schools because there are no teaching aid materials for them. There is no proper pedagogy for them. And yet, when it's time for us to go to UTG, they'll do a blanket 5 credits for all students. But those students did not get equity in education. That is why if you ask UTG, how many % of your students are living with disabilities, we don't know. Very few, you can't even count them. That should not happen. So we'll provide inclusivity, gender sensitive. Every girl must get access to education. In fact, we are even going further to say education will be compulsory. Compulsory. No child will be seen selling fruits or peanuts in the streets during school time. Every parent must ensure your child goes to school. Otherwise, you deal with the state. Compulsory education. No compromise about that. Compulsory education. Equitable education. Quality education. Not only that. Currently, the system is discriminatory against those who are technically oriented. You go to grade 12. Only those who can go to UTG proceed. The rest, you are out. You become jobless. No, not everybody can go to UTG. We'll make sure we create a skills training system, a vocational system in the school system, through the reforms, to ensure those who are technically gifted go learn skills, and they become successful in that. Those who are academic gifted go to UTG or university, and they are good at that. That is what we are going to do. Promise 6, we promise as a government to facilitate investments in climate-resilient agriculture to enhance productivity and achieve food security. Our vision is very simple. We are going to make sure that within our first 5 years, we have the right investments, tapping private capital to ensure we move away from subsistence agriculture to commercial large-scale agriculture using new knowledge and new technologies. We are going to make sure that also we introduce within our first 5 years, round the year, and not seasonal agriculture. The rains we are supposed to start 2 months ago were in August before the week ends. And yet it has rained, I think, only 2 or 3 times. The one time, it brought massive destruction to homes and livelihoods. These are the impacts of climate change. Recently, if you are an ardent news follower, you'll realize that Central China and Western Europe are having deadly floods. The MENA countries, Middle East and North Africa, are having droughts, ravaging dry spells, no water. And in West Africa, like Gambia, there are erratic rains. You'll realize that all the rains that were supposed to come in the past 2 months will come in 2 days in August, destroying harvests and people's homes. We need to build climate-resilient society, and we have to build an adaptable systems to ensure we have an agricultural system that ensures it is around the year, through rain harvesting, and also through using both our underground waters and also our surface waters, which we have in abundance. And ensure that we improve access to private sector capital so that young people can engage in agriculture. One of the things, if you go back, 100,000 jobs in the agro industry and its value chain. It goes with manufacturing, the agribusiness, and the agro-processing facilities we are going to create by doing what we call regional specialization. What is that? Fonyi is good in terms of their climate and soil at producing fruits. We'd like to see hectares and hectares and hectares of plantations, of pineapples, of bananas, of mangoes and oranges in Fonyi, where young people work. And in Fonyi, there are processing facilities that process these pineapples and these bananas and these mangoes that will be used in our supermarkets and our markets and for export to other parts of the world. This can be done through developing comprehensive agricultural or bankable agricultural projects, leveraging from both internal funding and external funding. And when we say external funding, internal funding, if you also follow news, you'll realize that last year what we received from remittances is 40% of GDP. That is huge. They are going to create the conditions right, even though that the conditions are not right, but we'll create the conditions right to tap from the diaspora with their wealth and knowledge by, amongst others, issuing what they call diaspora bonds. So those in the diaspora can safely invest their money in Gambia, which can also help develop our country. So that is agriculture to help us achieve food security. Today, we are not food secure. We only produce 19% of our rice needs, and rice is our staple food. Now, global obstructions, so global interruptions, can really bring untold hunger in this country. We are very vulnerable. And I think the COVID-19 has laid bare that. We've seen how inflation now has risen in this country. It's a global phenomenon. It's everywhere. So we need to make sure we are food secure as a country. Promise 7, this is a very bold and ambitious promise. I spoke to some experts who advised that we avoid giving numbers because we can find it very difficult if we don't achieve it. My answer is I am 100% sure, and I'm confident that we will achieve it. That is why I am bold enough to say we are going to build 100,000 affordable green homes for low-income earners like you, the journalists, staying here today. 100,000 affordable homes. For teachers, for nurses, for security officers like police officers, and other young Gambian civil servants who live on low income. We don't want any Gambian ever to work your entire life, rent your entire life, you die renting, and you leave your small family renting. That is going to stop in this country because we are going to build 100,000 homes. Why 100,000, some will ask? Because we looked at the data of 2015, it tells us that to close the housing gap, we need to build 50,000 homes. But it's 2021, we are going to build 100,000. We'll do it and you will see it, and we'll come back to you in 2026 and say, well, we promised you 100,000, we built it. Give us a mandate again and you will do it, and we'll build another 200,000-300,000 homes for the Gambia. And these will not be just any homes. They'll be green homes. We are going to tap on public-private partnerships that brings together the complementary capabilities of government in facilitating access to land, access to services, having the power to give tax breaks and duty waivers, but also to create the enabling environment. And also, once this is combined with the private sector's discipline and execution capabilities, we can build 100,000 homes in our first 5 years. In building these homes, why we say green, we are going to use new technology and new standardization for rapid delivery. We've also estimated that this project alone is going to be one of the most brazen, most expansive public infrastructural projects the Gambia has ever seen. It is going to provide 30,000 jobs for our young people, this sector, this project alone. And we are going to make sure that the majority of the materials used to build these homes are internally sourced. I visited GTTI and I saw how they are making these very nice bricks from earth. And they are resilient, they are green, they are not environmentally destructive. So we reduce our dependence on cement. So, Promise 7, build 100,000 affordable green homes for low-income earners. Obviously, the scheme will determine who is eligible, whether we are going to earmark 50% of the homes to teachers, nurses, and police officers, and the rest 50%, the rest, but we'll come up with the scheme as time goes on. Promise 8, we as a party are very wary of the environment. So therefore, we are going to protect our environment by doing what? We are going to tackle environmental pollution, or what they call industrial pollution. These so-called fish meal factories, they will no longer destroy our environment. We are going to protect our marine resources, not only for us, but for the next generation, because they also own it. We are going to invest in clean energy. Like I said, progressively, our idea is that by 2050, we are going to ensure that we have a green Gambia, by ensuring that the cars that will be driven in our streets, they emit the right emissions. We are going to put targets and caps on the kind of vehicles that will run on our roads. Not any vehicle. Some vehicles are not roadworthy. We'll bring big machines and scrap them all and sell the iron to China. But only clean vehicles will run our roads. We are going to invest in clean energy, waste management, and protect our flora and fauna. Reforestation. Build more forests. So that is what we are promising to do as a country. I'm not sure whether you've read what they call the Gambia Environment Action Plan, written by the National Environment Agency. Very comprehensive. When I read it, I realized that Gambia does not lack good regulatory frameworks. What we lack is implementation and having standards. If you haven't read it yet, read the phase 3 of that from 2021 to 2030. It will just tell you exactly what a CA government will do. Promise 9. Recently, we've seen a surge in crime and public safety. We are going to improve standards of living to fight the root causes of crime. See, to fight crime, you don't only focus on oppression. You focus on also fighting the root causes. And you can only do that if you improve standards of living and provide jobs for young people. So we are going to improve standards of living to fight the root causes of crime, reform the criminal justice system, especially prison reform. Currently, our prison is not fit for purpose. It's supposed to serve what they call a rehabilitation purpose, penitentiary, to rehabilitate offenders. So when they serve their sentence, they come back to society as born again, good citizens to serve society. But the current prison system we have, in fact, it emboldens and hardens criminals. There is no structure. When you come out, you come back and you go back to crime. We are going to do prison reforms. Among those, we can boldly say as a CA government, some prisoners will vote. Not all. Those accused of rape, murder, those bad crimes, no, but some prisoners will vote. depending on the sentence. We are going to also give their prisoners, they have rights. We are going to make sure justice is not delayed, as we are seeing now. And there is no transparency, and there is no equity in the delivery of justice in this country. The poor man has a higher likelihood of paying for his crimes than the rich man. The poor youth who is caught in the street corner with a joint is going for 6 months to 1 year. For what? Whilst the top executive officers steal out millions in government, they go scot-free. In fact, they are praised in society and glorified. That will stop in this country by making sure we embark on reforming of the criminal justice system. As a particular case, that should be of interest of every Gambian. We said never again the Mile 29 or Mile 28 case with Yankuba Baji. It's either if you suspect someone of committing a crime, do justice. Do justice. Bring evidence, convict, let them serve. But having people in Mile 2 for 10, 15, 20 years without proper trial and without conviction, it should not happen in this country. Because justice delayed is justice denied. And that applies to anybody who is in Mile 2. Sitting there and your justice is delayed, we think it is unfair. Justice must be served efficiently, effectively, and rapidly so that nobody's right is violated. So we are going to reform the criminal justice system. Not only that, on the operations aspect, strengthen and equip the security sector to ensure public safety. To ensure public safety. We are going to equip the police and all law enforcement agencies, the immigration, the prison services, the fire services, with new fire engines, with new training, new equipment, new gadgets, new digital infrastructure for the police within our first 5 years, new pay, so they are paid well, new uniforms, nice uniforms, new vehicles. Gambia should even have by now a police helicopter. That should be flying at night, written there, police. We should have that. That can serve at the same time as an emergency mechanism when there's an accident in one of the roads around Kiang to evacuate. By now, 2021, we can have it. We have the potential to do that. So we are going to equip the police. We are also going to build new institutions. One of the institutions we are going to build is a separate driving authority, license and driving authority. We don't believe that the police should be issuing licenses and they in turn enforce it. There should be a special authority responsible for issuing licenses, and it has to do with road traffic, signs and signage to ensure we reduce accidents in this country. Promise 10, finally. We're going to expand and strengthen public transport. Today we are at the mercy of some of us who join the Gele Gele every day to go to work, some of us. We know how it feels. I pay 5 fares from Brikama to Westfield. The van driver will tell me, "Nkadam farato le." Ngadapo farata aji ngaji ay tara na ko sa ngadan lamin. Lamin na ko nya sa Taboko to ko nya sa Westfield. Then me fudala Westfield count dala si jol. It's unfair. So we are going to invest in public transport, especially for school children. I see school children begging for lift every day. Some even go to late. Some go back home. They cannot get transport to go to school. So we are going to invest in public transport in this country, both urban and regional, through what they call the 3 R's: rail, river, and transport. Rail might be long-term. These are long-term investments, but it's possible. We have to revive our river transportation sector. So we have river boats that are solar powered, that can transport you from Banjul to Basse, Banjul to Kiang, Banjul to Badibu quickly. But also having a bus system within the urban areas that have special routes and timings so that you can move from Fajikunda to Talinding to Latikunda, coming to Manjai, coming to Kololi, Kersering. It goes on to Tom Table, it stops, it goes back. You have that route called route number 5, for example. We are going to do that within our first 5 years, and it's a promise. We are going to invest in digital infrastructure and networks. And that also is part of job creation. We believe that can provide at least 15,000 jobs for young people. When we have strong digital infrastructure networks, we can bring in tech companies to Gambia. We have very smart young Gambians who are tech experts. They can sit here in Kololi and do job for Amazon or Tesla or Toshiba in Japan, and they are sitting here. We live in a digital world, but you need a very strong digital infrastructure. Our vision is also to ensure that every household has access to broadband, just like how every household should have access to water and electricity. That is how every household should have. We have networks to make sure when we build areas and new houses and do the proper urban planning, every household is having a space or a facility to have access to broadband if you so wish. There should be nothing called what they call the digital divide in this country, especially along rural-urban divide and along socio-economic divide. Why should we who are living in urban Gambia get access to internet easily, and those in rural Gambia have poor access to internet? Every Gambian should get access to internet so you can get access to information, because information is power. When you have the right information, you can vote as you wish. You can have the right information. You can access government services. You have access to information. You can access anything you want. So which means that we are going to make sure this happens. And that is promise number 10. Those are the 10 promises. I'll quickly go through them in Mandinka and Wolof, quickly. Not the details, just the points. And then I'll allow Frida Nene to come and we'll take questions. So mbadingol bi mbenda jang kotenkele ning kibar janjannal ntol Citizens Alliance patio nga kibar janjannal kumandi bi ngoy ko na nga kacha bi mulul nati lumiano ka kumata bake ko patio ko ilafta ka la hidole di Gambia non la ko ning kate fa min kanale kate fa Citizens Alliance le mbe nyinni kala Gambia ani Gambia dingole fo nsi Gambia bondi batako no nga yurwa fi na Gambia na funding kelsi doko soto dingole karankendo soto mo sasata nge jara nga silol deda mote batala Gambia koda jiyo soto ani korongo sia ay sonoya akana fa na lahi di folo wolong munti bankola na fulo nga doku dinga doku na fulo yurwa nga doko bundal lafa ay sia mansakunda doku bunda ataka tama nyame nga faling isaje ala doku anyata mingala sake ku mansakunda fanana business ol mialon ko wolle be bankun kan kom na wek nyol ngi doku ngi la tamandir nyal faling isaje nyanta ka minke isake no wolon na lahi di foloti lahi di flanjango ndol Citizens Alliance ko niatara Gambia dingole kate fa yadi Citizens Alliance la fon sita December 2021 mbajala ko na sanyilulu folo mbe min kala man sakunda doku wuli keme mbole de dala Gambia dingol ya mbajala ko fana Gambia dingol la jo karfa jo akana doya mialon ko ite baluno la jele dimbal balundi ngaje fana ko musol nge dema nge sembentu ya fo e si kodo soto kodo mi alan ko wala si dema no e si business okay e si kordal sanno wala lafta ki min kala yake bare mbe bunda national musolien la hidi sabanjango ngamin fo wolon ko mbajala ko nga ferol mi alan ka bajala ko kurango e sia ay senea je sia ay senea koda je soto koda kurango soto anun kurango te fala andung abe betiala ay senea ay sonea lahidi nani jango nkonna jaral bunda me ferol fenanam fero mi alon ko Gambia di wo Gambia ding ibe dawoda iwluta dawoda esi ni sasa de se jarano ibe damen itata dula jang anun jaralo si betia ay senea milbe jaral wol fana ya no yela do ko no borole sia isaji gambe o dange meden itata dula jam pour ye jara kombe wala ken la hede lulu njango na karango bunda nkombe ferol felana ferol mialon ko gambe di wo gambia ding foy bota kolole bam fo koliyor foy bota fankama suule bam fo foire su ila karango isa soro ay betia asi nafa isa jelata kala minti gamba jang isi kati aye nafa jang isi nafa soto je ngata kala kapentati aye nafa isi la korda soto je ngata kala fitati aye nafa isi yurwa soto je nko mfanambe o karan si falle fela na gambia la hidi woro jango nko sene bunda me ferol fera nan fero mi alonko seno be yurwala kaje go seno de kala sama kono dronde barabe kala sango be kono le nga senal sembentu ya nga londo dila nga material na bagasol dila esaje seno sin nafa fo gambia en fan dañe no asatara do modote bala nan tuba banku kanana gambia banku kan na lahidi woro wulanjango nko ning asataran sita mbe mansakunda 2021 dandin sanyi lolobe banna ntol si eko koda wuli keme mbodo la gambe di ngole jana surtout mol mi alon ko la jomansia ko ticol anin polisol anin nosol anina fon ninke journalisol anina fon ninkel mi alon ko be do ko la mansakunda pour mum kaje ko gambia dingo ite do ko kala mansakunda fo ji ye luwaso ke ye fa luwaso kono ye dimbatu luwaso kono ko be bana gambe den ton tol ko da wuli keme mba lola le pour na fondin kel mi alon ko le masakunda anu la jomansia la hidi senjango na alhawa nkomba mutalale nga kanta isa tinyaro de kala na fulol la isaje ko ntinna fore sol tinyala nga yirol fi isaje mosi data kende asoto no gambia bankun kan na la hidi kononton jango mbajala ko tanko soto gambia bankun kan wo ferol bo fela nanne tanko soto kamol ka do ko ni funding kele saji si do ko no yefan na fano ka police ni immigration ni fire service ni momo mi ala ko do ko la tanko bunda ela do ko joda ngo ngadi la ngela jo nafa nge motivate saji si do ko no saji mo si tanko soto gambia bankun kan jang la di tang jang wala la banjangoti ko nyaadi control citizens alliance nin sita 2021 dan nin sanyi lulo be banna mba jala ko nga ferol fi nyalon ko public transport wala munti bosol anin kulundingol ba kono anin tirono le soto gambia mo wala takata dawda isi samba asatare ti kolya soto la je lift dane la koten gambia bankun kan ina kala do ko sta do ko la dum public transport kono ete lift dane la anin kaje ko suwo su a isi broadband soto ni laftala fondinkele do ko soto mbeo la hido di la gambia dingol la woto lo la hidi tangolti mi alon kon tol ngole foko ning sita 2021 be nyin la hido di la gambia ko be nyine kela sanjilu lo kono nimma ke nimurun tanan 2026 alim bay do ko la takana na contrat ko la alafa alina contrat ko cancel alim bay ale do ko di mo fotenna suma mbokay ma la na nuyu di len sante di len gërem di nuyu ñi nga xamne ño fi teew tay surtout taskati xibaar ñi nga xamne seen liggéey rafet na ci dikka bi ñoo nekk di tas xibaar yi ci dikka bi di ñaanal réew mi yàlla jàmm sax ci réew mi di wax ne fuñ tollu ni covid bi mu ngi garaaw képp koo xam ne mun ngaa dem pour ñu péngu la ñu pikir la nga dem ñu pikir la surtout yéen journalistes yi yéen mi nga xam ne fu nekk ngeen dee duga kon di sant ñëpp te lu ñu fi ici tey mooy ne ñun Citizens Alliance dañ wax ne ñu ngi dig Gambia doo réewi Gambia ak doomi Gambia ne soo leen ñu óoloo ngeen sànni ñu 2021 December am na ñi nga xam ne ñu ngi ko waa réew mi ne dañ koo def bara suñ juróomi at bi di jeex digte yooyu noonu moo ñu fi ici tey pour ñu ñëw feeñal ko fesal ko si réewi Gambia ak si képp koo xam ne doomi réew mi nga ndax yaa ngi si biir réew mi fii oote yaa ngi bitim réew njëlbeen digte bi mooy ne ñu ngee dig doomi réew mi ne so la ñu sànnilee bañ toog 2021 balaa juróomi at bi di jeex ñun Citizens Alliance dinañ gis ne comme réew mi ñu liggéey ko si bépp fànn nag pour gis ne képp koo xam ne doomi réew mi nga am xëy boo xam ne na la njëriñ ak doxalini nguur gi ñu defaraat ko pour nguur gi lu mu war a def mu ree ko nit ñi luñ soxla si nguur ñu am ko ak ñu gis ne tamit njuuj njaaj mu nga xam ne mooy xew si nguur gi ñu daaxa ko si biti ba alali réew mi ab koom-koomi réew mu njëriñ ab doomi réew. Do we continue or? Good. Electricity is gone. Mooy njël benn dig no. All right, let me see. I think I can see it, yes. Let me just go to my email. No. That's all right. So, ñaareeli dicté bu ñoo dig réewi Gambia ak képp koo xam ne doomi réew mi nga mooy ne soo leen ñu sànnilee karta 2021 balaa juróomi at bi di jeex dinañ gis ne réewi Gambia fii téeméeri junne xëy yi la ñoo isi pour képp koo xam ne ndawi réew mi nga lu ñu isi xëy rek de waaye xëy mi nga xam ne fee bi dina baax képp kuy liggéey sa liggéey war na laa njëriñ loo mun a doon loo soo nekkee kapenta njëriñ la nga mun see sampa sa kër pour sa joboot soo nekkee fita nga sampa sa kër pour sa joboot wala football la xëy yooyu la ñoo isi gis ne fee bi baax na loolu ñu ngi ko dig waa réewi Gambia. ñetteeli digle bi mooy lan gis ne faj bi képp ku feebar ñu muñ laa faj te doo dem fu sori foo dëkka ñu faj la fa gis ne isi jéego yoo xam ne isi pexe yoo xam ne faj bi mu yomba mu baax te ñëpp jot si. ñeenteeli digteel bi mooy lan ñu gis ne jàng ak jàngale bi ñu isi jéego yoo xam ne ak pexe yoo xam ne képp koo xam ne doomi réew mi nga ndax kololi nga juddu ndax Koliyoor ndax Saalum nga am jànga boo xam ne mun la naan njëriñ mun ngaa njëriñ see joboot nga mun fee dund te fii nii. juróomeeri digteel bi mooy ban ñu gis ne jaww ji ñu liggéey ko ba yaaxu mi nga xam ne moo nekk di am si géej gi ak si suñ forest bi ñu daaxa ko si biti ba gis ne fii Gambia ñu defar jaww ji defar suñ forest yi jiigu yu bari pour yaaxu mi nga xam ne mboobu la di isi ñu daaxa ko si biti. juróom-benneel bi mooy lan ñu gis ne aar képp koo xam ne doomu réew mi nga ñu aar la pour gis ne gune yi ndaw yi am nañ liggéey ñu nekk si dara ñu tekki si police yi ak soldaar yi ak fire service képp koo xam ne yow si loolu mooy sa liggéey si wàllu aar la ñu jàppale la dooleel la jox la li nga soxla pour sa liggéey nga mun koo def mu mut su boobaa ñu gis ne képp koo xam ne fii nga nekka ñu mun la aar nga sakir si biti suba sàccee duñ la sonal reye gi wàññeeku ak gaañante gi. digtale juróom ñaareel bi mooy si wàllum which one again did I forget? Which one? Yes. Bii moom musta am Gambia bi moo njëlbeen bi gis pati muy dig ne soo leen joxee nguur gi si juróomi at dinañ sampa téeméeri junne kër pour ñi nga xam ne seen fay bariwut noonu comme police yi ak soldaar yi ak noos yi ak ticca yi jàngalekat yi téeméeri junne kër la ñooy sampa biir Gambie si suñ juróomi at bu ñoo toog pour gis ne ñi nga xam ne seen fay bariwut ñu mun see jot si kër yooyu noonu parce que daf du dëkka di yoon nga nekk ki nga xam ne yaa ngi liggéeyal sa nguur wala sa dëkka ngay luwaas nga dee si luwaas nga bàyyi sa joboti ndaw si luwaas loolu leen ko bugg a daax si biti kon ñu ngi war ne ñu ngi sampa fukki téeméeri junne yi kër suma mbokki Gambia yooyu ñooy ñi nga xam ne yooyu lañ leen amal tey li mooy dicté boo xam ne Citizens Alliance mu ngi koo def di ko jox doomi réew mi ne leen ne soo la ñu sànnilee 2021 bi la ñoo defal Gambia suñ ko defutee suñ ñu waatee 2026 ñu ñaanaat leen liggéey pour ngeen jëlaat ñu liggéey ba leen ñu ko jox. Thank you very much everyone for the attention and all those who are listening from far and wide through obviously the live streaming. We urge each and everyone out there to join CA Because CA is the only party that has a vision that can also unify Gambians. Our country is highly polarized right now. And no matter your vision, no matter your ideas, no matter your competence, if you have a divided country, you cannot govern properly. But CA is the only party that can unite Gambians. So therefore, we urge every Gambian out there to come and join CA today through www.ca.gm. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ismail Assisi. Again, how can I not love this man? Every time I listen to him speak, I get more energized. I feel like I need to do more. And I believe everybody that is listening will feel the same. I often say one of the biggest differences in people is their level of enthusiasm, which I believe reflects one's reserve, reflects one's unexploited resources, and perhaps one's future. A CA government, under the leadership of Dr. Ismail Assisi, will continuously engage with you, the media, or with the people through the media, the citizenry, people that has a stake in this country. Broken promises has caused one of the biggest failures in this country, and 2016 coalition is a case in point. So in this country, when you say promise, it leaves a bitter taste in people's mouths because we're still going through the aftermath of a broken promise. All hope is not lost. We're here to reassure, to instill hope once again that we can salvage this country under a CA government, under the leadership of Dr. Ismail Assisi. CA, we believe that truth exists, but lies are created. So we have a choice to stay with the truth that already exists, or we create lies and we go nowhere. We choose to stay with the existing truth, stand by it, live by it, promote it. At CA, we walk the talk. I want, at this point in time, open the floor for you, my friends, like this Dr. Ismail Assisi say, I'm the darling of the media, and I take it, to allow you to ask your questions. He has extensively explained this 10 points. And may I say, a lot of people are asking the hows, the whens, the why, how can you afford it, where are you going to get the funding? This may not be the perfect moment to get into those details because we're time-bound. But we have committed ourselves to have a weekly engagement specifically on these 10-point promises on a weekly basis, having a journalist host the program so the questions of the how, the when, the how, the where, the who can be asked so that we can all be informed and be better convinced that CA is the choice for Gambia, CA is the solution for Gambia. And that will commence August 4th. We will start our first series, live stream, to talk about these 10-point promises and delve into it in much detail so that all your questions can be answered, all your queries or inquiries can be clarified. So I'll open the floor, so that the media houses, everybody here present, the journalists, you can ask your questions on everything you've heard Ismaila Sister said here. We've made promises, and we're going to stick by it. With CA, we know how important a promise is, and our word is going to be our bond. So the floor is open. Introduce yourself, which media house you're coming from, and get into the question, and we'll do our best to ensure that those questions are answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nene. Every time is a perfect time in politics. So consider this as a perfect time to ask your questions. Even Nene is a bit humble, saying that the hows and the whens and the whys, we will answer them even if you ask them now, so we are ready. So fire the shots. Who goes first? Yes.
There's a mic here that you can use.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Very particular on the issue of the one account that you promised to create for people. And then this will take you 5 years. And considering the number of students we have in school, so 600,000, then every graduate will have 600,000. So how long will it take you to eradicate unemployment?
Thank you very much. How long will it take us to eradicate unemployment? There is no country in the world that has eradicated unemployment, not even the big economies of the US, the Germanys. Germany has about 5% unemployment rate. The US, it depends. It goes up and down. Even the UK has high unemployment rate. What we want to do is to keep it as low as possible so that the majority of Gambians, especially young ones, have gainful employment. Currently, the unemployment rate among young people is 41%. And in fact, these figures are not even realistic. It can even be more. Our aim is to reduce it to at least what is globally acceptable, between 3 and 5% unemployment rate. So we are not promising to eradicate unemployment within our first 5 years. But within the first 5 years, we'll create at least, we say at least, 100,000 jobs. It means that it could be more, but nothing less than 100,000 jobs. And the aim, obviously, both in the medium and long term, is to ensure we keep unemployment to a minimum and globally accepted levels of between 3 and 5%. Thank you.
So, importantly, tourism is one of the key sectors in the
Yeah, go on. Oh.
I don't know how tourism is for CA, and what are your plans for tourism?
Tourism is one of the critical sectors. In fact, it is considered to be one of Gambia's most critical economic drivers. And these are to tourism and agriculture. That is why if you look at promise number 1, we say what? We are going to diversify the economy. So tourism is part of that, because I did not mention the sectors by sector. That includes tourism, includes trade, includes agriculture, includes services, includes sports, in fact. So tourism is key. In fact, it is critical to our entire model of economic diversification by ensuring that we diversify the tourism sector and bring innovative solutions and shift away, obviously, from the traditional view of Gambia as a destination only for sand and sea, but also other products that we are going to add in our vision to diversify the tourism sector by making sure we build artificial game parks so that a tourist that wants to fly from London to Nairobi to go to the Serengeti, that he knows that there's something similar to the Serengeti in the Gambia, which is just 5 hours away from Gatwick. So therefore, we are going to make Gambia a globally competitive tourism sector. Not only engaging in the traditional tourism, but also going to new ways of tourism called conference tourism, by transforming certain islands like Jinak, obviously, and Bonto Island into conference islands, by building 21st century facilities, conference facilities there, so that we create another Davos in Banjul, in Jinak, so that the World Trade Organization, the UN, when they have big, massive international conferences, can come and do it in Jinak with all the facilities there. This brings, obviously, money to the Gambia, or Bonto Island, by also investing in game tourism like fishing, or recreational tourism, and other forms of tourism. So tourism is key, and we have specific plans in how we want to transform that sector to ensure its full potential is tapped, and it also contributes to at least minimum 30% of our GDP. Thank you.
My name is Lamin from Kepler.
Excuse me, can you come closer so that your questions can be heard by our viewers? Thank you.
The question that I have, implementation is Gambia's biggest problem. It is not that we don't have ideas. There are a lot of people with ideas, but to implement the ideas is the biggest problem, and who knows of it. So what are some of the mechanisms the CA put in place to implement all these 10 points policies that we made?
Thank you. Cisse. Yeah, Cisse, huh?
Yes.
You are my brother. The only thing I don't like is your Chelsea shirt. So I'll baptize you to become an Arsenal fan. And if you become an Arsenal fan, you'll be able to answer the question I'm about to answer. Now, you made a very important observation, that implementation has been the problem in the Gambia. But did we ever ask ourselves the question, why is that the case? Why? Why has it been that? We have all the beautiful regulations in this country, yet implementation is a problem. Why? We've looked at that, and we have specific plans to solve that problem. One, by setting targets. Targets are not set. You appoint a civil servant and just let him give an office and he does his job. You don't even evaluate his performance. You don't set targets to say every 6 months this is your target. You must implement X, Y, Z. And then you evaluate whether you've met your target or not. If not, we deal with you. If you meet your target, we give you incentives so you can be able to meet more targets. By also setting standards. We need to set standards in this country. We cannot accept anything like that. We accept anything. It's like that. Jamu Africanity. No. We set standards. We make targets. We do performance evaluation of civil servants from the minister down. Even the minister will be given targets. Either 6 monthly targets or yearly targets. If you don't meet your targets, goodbye. The order is open. Go find something else. But we'll get civil servants here, especially top civil, who are underperforming for decades and decades and decades, yet they maintain their job, and they are underperforming. They're not even underperforming, they are being destructive. They're not doing anything. For 20 years, holding an office, you're not delivering anything, and you are still there. No. So by making sure implementation happens, set standards, set targets, do performance evaluation, and make sure that people are punished for not meeting their targets, but also they get incentives and encouragement for meeting their targets. By instilling a culture of ethics and professionalism in the civil service, to ensure that anybody who is a Gambian civil servant, no matter which country you go to, no matter what civil servant you meet, whether American civil servants or German civil servants, you can discuss with them at the level where you can represent the Gambia well. We used to have one of the best civil services in the West African continent, in the West African sub-region, during the Jawara period. But now all that is gone. So much mediocrity, and we celebrate it. So much nepotism, giving jobs to people who don't deserve it, and yet we glorify it. So we are going to make sure implementation happens by doing what I just said. Thank you.
The other question that I have is, you said there are certain ministries that you reduce from the ministries
Yes, of course, I know that. That is why, because I know viewers are interested, that is why I will not reveal it now. I want you to anticipate for another event like this when we'll unveil our model government. We are going to call you very soon here again to unveil some. You know, we've unveiled our agenda, our promise. To implement this promise and this agenda, we are going to also create a model government to help us do that. It means that we are going to call you here soon to unveil our model government and the max 13 or max 14 ministries that will ensure this happens. But like I tell you, what is clear is that some ministries right now duplicate each other. Some are not fit for purpose anymore. Some just consume resources and don't contribute anything, and therefore they must go. We will realign some ministries. We'll really abolish some ministries because they're not fit for purpose anymore. We'll realign some. We'll synchronize some. And then we'll create new ones as well to deal with 21st century challenges. Not only today's challenges, but ministries that can even anticipate challenges that we'll encounter in 2060 and start preparing us to deal with those challenges in 2060. That is what will happen. But when we call you to unveil our model government, you'll come, I'll do the same presentation. I'll tell you Ministry 1. This is the ministry. We might even have a ministry for journalists. You never know. It takes what?
Many trees to form a forest. And so it applies to the government system of any nation. You have different sectors that come together to make sure that the objectives of the government is obtained. So in any chance that CA is not ushered in to serve the Gambia in the next 5 years, what is the level of commitment to this party to at least partner with any of the ruling party that will be, that will be elected by Gambian citizens to serve as their president, make sure that at least some of these important areas or some of these important promises that you have just elaborated on is obtained in this country?
So your question is?
What is your level of commitment to make sure, even if you are not ushered in as the president, that at least some of these promises will be obtained?
I think we all know the role of a political party. Political parties are the whole governments accountable and prefer policy solutions. That is the role we can play as a political party. And we don't think that will happen because we are highly confident that Gambians will have confidence in CA and vote for CA in December. That we don't make it to government, we will still play our role as an opposition. Not even as an opposition. I've always said before that we don't see ourselves as an opposition, we see ourselves as an alternative party. So we'll play that role to hold government accountable to the highest standards and provide solutions to them. I think that is also one way of helping that government. By saying, government, you are doing X when it comes to agriculture, but it will not work or it is not working, do Y as we want to do it. That is one way how we can hold them accountable. And also that is one way in how we can contribute to the next government which is there through our ideas and also providing solutions as well.
Is your party doing enough to popularize the code of conduct to the member in terms of the message they are giving? And what are you doing in that aspect?
In terms of?
In terms of the message they're going to give.
Yes.
Each party is required to have code of conduct, and you have to switch it to educate the member.
Yeah.
And secondly, what if there is 100,000 in homes? That was how we did it. And then the issue of rent is also an issue that is affecting the country, especially the township. Do you have any plans, either by recommendation or whatsoever plan you have to address this problem? And do you have a starter comment?
4 questions. Thank you. The first question has to do with the code of conduct of the party and how this will be disseminated and internalized with our members. CA is a political party that has structures all across the country, from Banjul to URR. We are going to use our existing structures to ensure that the code of conduct is internalized. But like I said, we live in a digital world now. Before, it used to take years if you post a letter from one continent to the other. Now, within minutes, you can transmit information. We'll use digital media. We'll use our social media platforms. We have tens and hundreds of social media platforms within the party. We'll use those ones to disseminate our codes of conduct. We also provide training. CA is a part that has what we call the CA Leadership Academy. We have one where we provide training for young members. And through that training, there's a training component called ethics and integrity, where we teach our young members ethics and integrity. And we'll use also we also teach CA values as well. We'll use that platform as well to disseminate our codes of conduct, our social media platforms, but also using our regional structures from the regional level to the constituency level to the ward level to make sure the code of conduct is disseminated. With the 100,000 homes, how we are going to build it? We are going to, like I said, we are going to use the power and the regulatory power of government with the effectivity of the private sector. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we want to build 20,000 homes in CRR, because these 100,000 homes will not be built in the Combos alone. We are going to decentralize it. We build in CRR, in URR, in North Bank, in Fonyi, in West Coast. So let's say we want to build 20,000 in CRR. We'll engage a private developer who's a young Gambian. So government will come and provide land, provide services, make sure you have utilities, water and electricity. Give you tax breaks, let's say for 5 years. And also give you a duty waiver to bring in some of the products you need to import into the country to build the homes. What will that do? To bring down the production cost. Houses are expensive to build here because of production cost. The private developer has to buy the land, bring in the utility, water, electricity, build the house, import goods or buy them. That takes the production cost up. But if government comes and provides what we can do, give the land for free, give you duty waiver to bring in the products you need to build the house, give you the utilities, but also give you a tax break. Now you build the house, either by investing in it or we look for private investment. When that happens now, when you build the house, now we engage the private banks to provide mortgage for the police officer who wants. So that the bank buys the house, but then the bank still owns it until you finish paying as a police officer to the bank. After 20 years, the house becomes yours. That is one of the schemes that, like I said, the scheme is still being developed, but that is one way we are thinking of doing it. And I think that is, in fact, how we are going to do it. But we are still talking to experts in the housing, in that industry, to guide us well. But this is something like that is what we'll be doing. The third question has to do with, what was it again? Rent. In fact, one of the reasons why we promised to build 100,000 is because of the rent, the exploitation in the housing market in the Gambia today. Rents have skyrocketed by almost 200% in this country. Why? Because of the demand for housing has increased over the past 2-3 years because of rural-urban migration, among other things. Today, 60% of our population live in urban Gambia, but urban Gambia was not built to have 60% of the population. These pressures are creating a situation where the demand for housing is outstripping housing supply that increase the rent prices. That is why one of the things we are going to do to close that gap, that housing deficit, is to build these 100,000 homes in the medium term, or in the short medium term, within our first 5 years. And also by building it in rural Gambia, by reversing development. What is reverse development? By making sure that we start development from rural Gambia. Moratorium here in urban Gambia. Why should we build all the hotels in urban Gambia? All the good hospitals in urban Gambia? All the good private schools in urban Gambia? All the good roads in urban Gambia? No, we reverse it now. We build the good hospitals in rural Gambia. We build the good roads in rural Gambia. We build the good clinics in rural Gambia. We provide the good factories in rural Gambia, so people can live in rural Gambia. So the rural-urban dichotomy is blurred. It doesn't exist anymore. Today, if I go to London and take the Virgin train and get to Newcastle, it's like I'm in the same country, I know, because everything is similar. Why should I move 100 kilometers away from Banjul to Soma or to Pakaliba, and I feel like I've traveled 100 years back in time within the same country? It's unfair. We are going to reverse development. So it means that in the short term, we are going to regulate the housing market and make sure that rent is compatible to, obviously, people's pay, but increase people's pay. In Gambia, you cannot control inflation to some extent. But when you increase people's pay, at least it offsets it. So in the meantime, we'll increase people's pay to afford the rent. But in the medium term, we are going to build 100,000 homes. What's your final question? Like I said, we are going to unveil our model government, and by then perhaps we will unveil the shadow cabinet. Thank you.
And let me see so once again. Okay. My question is land grabbing.
Who's grabbing land?
Yes, grabbing lands. Experts, security experts, it's one of the biggest challenges. It's one of the biggest threats to our national security. But in your 10 points promises, I haven't seen them. And then you cannot build that 100,000 houses, green houses, while this, land issue is still existing. What plans do you have, to solve this land issue? That's number one question. The other question is the CA government going to be like the coalition government to take people's land and allocate it to other people?
All right. Now, the land issue, CA is aware that the land issue is a very critical issue, and also, in fact, it has a security component. That is why, and also be reminded that CA has a manifesto. The 10-point plan is drawn from the manifesto. If you read our manifesto, there's a special chapter dedicated to how we are going to solve the land. In fact, if you look at the preamble, we mention exactly that we are worried about the land tenure system here and how it is causing problems and can cause long-term security problems. We read the Faraba Commission's report, and we drew inspiration from their recommendations in how to avoid a potential conflict in this country because of this land issue. So not that we minimize or we don't take seriously the issue of land, but it's in the manifesto. And like I said, the manifesto is complementary to the 10-point plan. So it's there. So we are serious about it, and we are going to deal with it. How are we going to deal with it, you said? And also note also that the land grabbing, or as if I may borrow your term, happens mostly in the combos. But we are going to deal with it by one, making sure that we reform the land tenure system. Currently, it is not fit for purpose. Population growth has made, and also industrialization and population density has made that provision, that law to be outdated. So we are going to reform it. We are going to establish a permanent land commission, not the lip service land, a permanent one, with equal powers, just like the National Human Rights Commission, and empower them and resource them to deal with the land issue. Make sure every land is mapped and digitalized. And in fact, we might even to some extent to even being radical and have a moratorium on all sale and buy of land for the time to get the land issue sorted out first. A moratorium, nobody buys, nobody sells. Until we have every land in digital space. Which one belongs to government, which one belongs to who, and then we know exactly what to do with it. Which one should be for arable for agriculture, which one for housing. So we have a proper urban planning. Current tenure system is not fit for purpose. We are just selling like that. We are also going to bring new strong regulatory framework to regulate the estate agents. Currently, there's no regulatory framework. They do anything that they want. They build any housing they want. There are no controls. Physical planning is not staffed to ensure that houses are built in conformity with security and safety. Public safety is key. If you go to the markets and in the streets, there are serious health hazards. When we build our houses and the streets are so bad that when there's a fire, the fire engine cannot even arrive and enter and get access to put the fire off. You cannot build houses like that anymore. You need to have proper urban planning mechanisms so that there can be access for wheelchair-bound people, there can be access for fire engines, there can be access for ambulances. If you buy 100 ambulances like the government is planning to do, and the ambulance cannot access people's homes, what is the purpose of the ambulance then? Just to be roaming around at night. That's no point. So we are going to make sure that we put every land and really proper recalibrate and proper plan the country again, so that we take consideration of the hazards of spacing and also public hazards. Markets should be properly built so that there is health and safety in the markets. The markets are so much so that now with one fire, people can die. So these things we'll deal with. And the land commission, like the permanent one, it brings strong regulatory frameworks for the estate agents, making sure that we really reform the land tenure system to avoid a situation where that can bring a land crisis. So, but then we take the land issue very, very seriously, and we are going to pay attention to it, and we are going to find ways to ensure that we solve the land problem. But also, finally, for that question, we are seeing a worrying trend, and we are sending a very strong warning to the Adam Barrow government. They are selling all our prime land and our reserve land right now, especially those along the TDA. Those land were for river reserve. The purpose of reserve is what? This land we are saying does not belong to us alone. It belongs to my children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren. They are selling everything now. My children and your children will not get access to prime land. They will not get the privilege to build a seafront house because they've sold everything. They've sold everything in very dubious ways. And they're leaving paper trail. And we are having access to all these paper trail. Anybody who buys land in a dubious way without following due process from this government in a prime area, we are buying land at your own risk. With the CA government, we're not only going to set up mechanisms to investigate how public funds were abused and misused during this government's era, but how contracts were allocated and how land was allocated. And if you get your land not following due process, it's for you to lose it.
Good afternoon once again. My name is Musa Trawale from VM International TV. My question is, I want to know exactly, with all the promises that you have made here, what about if you are going to achieve any of this? What will be your next step?
Well, we make promises to fulfill them. We are not the ones who will make a 3-year promise and not fulfill it. You will not see me sitting here in 4 or 5 years' time and making utterances like, well, if you are looking for votes, you can make any promise. Once you get the votes, you can do whatever. I will not do that. I can promise you here and now that we are going to fulfill all these 10 promises within our first 5 years. And like I said, if we don't give us your vote for the other 5 years. And I'll consider us as a failure. And let it be marked in history that there once was a political party called Citizens Alliance, that it brought the biggest failure and embarrassment to this country than any other party. That is a very bad legacy, and I wouldn't want to leave that behind for my kids to read that history in the school books when I leave this world. So we are going to fulfill the promises.
Okay, what about, for example, if you are not elected by the Gambians, what promise are you going to do, even though like Gambians do not elect you, elect you? What exactly would you do among these 10 promises for the Gambians for free?
By giving these ideas to government for free, the government that will be there for free, so they can use it for the Gambians. Yes.
Decides to form a coalition to remove the present government. Will Citizen Alliance gladly join the coalition or would rather stand alone? Thank you.
I think it's high time we have a frank discussion about this thing with coalitions. We are so fixated with coalitions that we think it is the panacea to our problems. We've seen in 2016, it did not solve, did it solve our problems? It did not. As a party, we don't believe in coalitions just to remove a government and replace it with a worse government. The purpose why we are in politics is not to be in government alone. It's to be in government and bring positive change and transformation to this country. That is the reason why in politics. Not to be in government, but to change, to bring change. Now, if it is to join the coalition just to remove President Barrow and to replace another one who's going to do not, we are not part of that. And I've said that before. But also, coalitions are not only removing the sitting president. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect is how you govern. I'll give you an example. These 18 political parties can come together and form a strong coalition. The agenda is what? One, to remove the president. What is the second agenda? After removing the president, so what? They have to what? They have to govern, isn't it? Can they govern together? Do they have the same view of governance? What if one of the parties is not serious in fighting corruption? And we are serious in eradicating corruption. And the party not serious in fighting corruption, their member is the flag bearer and the president. And we are telling him that, you know what, don't accept this contract, it is not good for the Gambian people. What will that president do to me? He will sack me. Because why? Gambia has a presidential system. Coalitions in presidential systems are different from coalitions in parliamentary systems. In parliamentary systems, when coalitions collapse, they go for elections again. The government collapses. They go for elections again. In a presidential system, when coalitions collapse, the president rules as an executive president because he's elected for 5 years and has overriding powers to appoint ministers and whatever he wants to do. So the question is not about forming a coalition to remove President Barrow. It's about rebuilding this country. And I've said it before that if we see, we are not thinking of forming one now. We are not into politics to form coalitions. Otherwise, we will not even form a political party. We'll just join an existing party. We'll join politics to bring the innovative ideas and the transformative solutions to change this country. That is why we are into politics. So for me, that is it. Our interest is not to remove the president, but to remove the current president and build a country. I hope I've answered your question.
Okay. So it's evident that women, children, and the physically challenged people in this country are underrepresented in our Gambia. So would you like to at least convince your audiences with one or two mechanisms that your cabinet is going to inject to make sure that change is obtained with that people?
You mean a part of the 10-point promise?
Yes.
But obvious, did you see promise number one?
Yes.
Number two.
How are you going to achieve that?
We said we are going to establish a scheme to expand access, financial access to women, so that you as a woman who lives in Tabokoto and you want to engage in business and go and do gender njai, you are not used by economic predators who give you 5,000 and they want you to pay them 7,000 within 3 months. No, we are going to create a scheme, a financial service system so that you can get cheap loan or even at zero interest to do business. A scheme so that you as an entrepreneur woman, you need access, you want to buy land. Because the land tenure system currently as we speak doesn't favor women. So that you want to buy your own land, we give you access to finance. That is why if you even look at all the points, we say equity, 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 healthcare, equity. Nobody should be discriminated because of gender or disability. Every Gambian, based on your gender, disability, senior or junior citizens, get access to the same quality healthcare, access to the same education. So these are key. That is why if you look at the words carefully, we are very careful how we choose them. Equity, equitable distribution of our wealth. Across rural-urban divide. It's unfair for my child to go to private school and for a child in Boraba to go to a bad public school with no chairs. And they grow up in this country. It means that my child will grow up to become a pilot because he wants to be a pilot. And a child will not grow up to be a pilot. He will not fulfill his or her dreams. He'll have no choice but to go and decide to become a teacher because the teaching profession has been relegated as not important and go to Gambia College and struggle. And we think that is unfair. That's what we are going to change by coming up with the right policy interventions and social interventions to balance the country, because the country is not balanced. It's like a scale. We did this like this. A few people with all the wealth up there, the rest of the population sitting on this part of the scale is like that, will inject the right policy solutions and social interventions to make sure this scale is balanced and create a bigger middle class. We are not going to promise equality because it is hard to achieve, but equity, so that everybody lives a dignified life. By making sure, in fact, taxation is key. If you pay your taxes that you are supposed to pay, but we give you services, instead of your child going to SBEC and you pay $60,000 every 3 months, pay good taxes, pay your taxes, and we'll build good public schools so your child can go to the good public school without going to the private school.
And I guess universities will be inclusive in that as well.
Of course, yes. Thank you.
I have one more question. Sorry. This one I have to be okay. About the safety of journalists. Sinners. We are the eyes, the mouth, and the voice of the people out there. But our safety is questionable. In 2019, my colleagues and I were attacked by a youth movement during this nationwide talk at Lamekono Bara. Nothing happened. The only thing they do, the government spokesperson, Minister of Information, cook up a story, publish it, and release it like that. 2 radio stations were closed down. Nothing happened. The CA government. What can the CA government do to ensure the safety of journalists in this country?
Well, obviously, there is what they call the Gambia Press Union, isn't it? Isn't it? There are also legislations, I think, if I may get that right, that are already in the Media Commission. If you look at the draft constitution, they are thinking of creating a Media Commission, isn't it? We are going to work with the GPU to create that enabling environment for the media, especially media personnel, so that they are protected. And like I said, if you look at promise number 9, it says that to reform the criminal justice system. What happened to you in Lamin Koto will not happen within a CA government. That is, we are not going to allow impunity. People will pay for their crimes. So therefore, we are going to work with the GPU to come up with the right strategies to ensure that media personnel are protected, just like in other Gambian. No media personnel should be harassed or feel threatened while doing your job, both online and offline. So that will not happen under a CA government. And we are going to bring strong legislation to protect the media because it is the first estate. If there can be legislation to protect the parties of the president and the National Assembly members and the judiciary, there must be strong legislation to protect media personnel. It means one of the things we'll do is to even make it even a more harder sentence and a more serious crime if you harass a journalist than if you harass somebody who's not a journalist. So we are going to work with the GPU, we'll engage the GPU, sit together, come up with the right framework to ensure you Mr. Chelsea, you are protected. All right, if there are no more questions, we thank you once again for coming to attend this very important press briefing. It is the 7th press briefing. The 12th press briefing, I'll be standing here as President of the Republic of the Gambia. Amen. So I thank you very much and have a pleasant day. And I wish you all the best. Like I said, go get yourself vaccinated if you haven't done so, to protect yourself and your community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ismaila Cisse, for shedding light or giving clarity to that beautiful presentation. I'm going to reiterate. Earlier on, I said, at the level of Citizens Alliance, we believe that truth exists and lies are created. Doctor has mentioned earlier on, we've seen in this country, people say one thing, the next minute they say, I've taken it back, I don't mean it. We at Citizens Alliance, we won't be those kind of people. And looking back for far too long, 56 years to be precise, the CA believes that we've asked for little, we've received little, and we settled for little. That needs to change. We, the Gambians, deserve better. We, the citizenry, deserve greater. Us deserve the best. Can we get it? Absolutely yes, but with the kind of leadership. An influential leader, we believe, a visionary leader, a leader who has love for his or her people, an empathetic leader, a charismatic leader, and of course, a leader who has some level of intellectual pedigree. And I stand here today to tell you the Citizens Alliance has provided that kind of a leader for you, who is no other person than Dr. Ismaila Ceesay. So come 2021, December 4th, choose right, choose wisely, choose the right leader, who will be Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, to salvage us as a country and as a people. Thank you very much, my friends, our partners, the media, and everybody watching us. We will come your way again for the 8th monthly press conference next month. And until then, it's a very warm thank you, and have a blessed day. Thank you very much.